When it comes to drawing and attracting fish into your peg, one thing that has stood the test of time is ground bait. Brilliant attractant, draws loads of fish into your peg, but it's really important to choose the right ground bait and mix it correctly. So how do you go about that? Well, first of all, choosing the correct ground bait really does depend on the venue. Today I'm at a commercial fishery, so a really pellety, fish meal type mix is absolutely perfect. If I was going to a natural venue, I'm probably going to look at a sweet mix, and if it was silverfish on a commercial in winter, probably a combination of the two. But today we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to mix up a fish meal ground bait and show you exactly how to mix it. So first up, perfect thing is a round bowl like this 10 litre EVA bowl. Plenty of space in there, I can get my hand in, work the ground bait about, and most importantly, no corners for the bait to get trapped in, meaning I'm going to mix it nice and equally and nice and consistently without any bits getting missed. So first of all, I'm going to take my ground bait, like I said, a nice fish meal mix. I'm going to pour that into there. I don't need to put loads in, just as much as I think I'm going to use for a session. As you can see there's maybe half a kilo. So I've got it in there, totally dry. Next thing is to add water. Now, what I don't want to do is add too much water straight away, which could ruin the ground bait. But you've got to remember that this is going to soak up moisture and absorb lots of ground bait. So it probably needs to be slightly wetter than how it's going to finish up. So let's take a little bit of water first of all. As you can see, I'm just going to put a little bit in. If you look in there, there's a bit of water, there's not loads, I'm not drowning it. And then I'm just going to give it a good stir around. If I lift that up again, you can see I'm mixing it in. It's a little bit lumpy at the minute. I'm going to give it a real good mix. Get right in all them edges, make sure everything's mixed in properly, which, like I said, is where that round bowl comes in. So all that water's mixed in now, and as you can see, I can form a nice ball with it. Now, how much water you add really depends on what you're going to be doing with it. So, for example, if I'm going to be fishing a method feeder, really popular tactic for ground bait, I want it so I can squeeze it in a ball that is nice and hard like that, but it's not overly wet, which means it can break down, it can fall off my feeder. Opposite to that, if I'm maybe going to be feeding it across to the far bank of a lake like this, or maybe down the margin, then I'm going to add even more water. I'm going to get it really, really wet, really heavy, to make sure it doesn't cloud up and it doesn't waft about too much. But now I've got that mixed a little bit, it's not far off how I'd want for a method feeder, probably slightly wetter, but I'm now going to leave that for maybe 10 minutes, just let it absorb a bit more moisture, and then I'll probably find that I've got to add a little bit more water to it. Right, so like I said, I've left my ground bait for 10 minutes, and as you can see, it's totally changed in consistency now. It's soaked up all that moisture, and actually, if I'm going to put it around a method feeder, that is probably a little bit too dry. It's probably just going to break up, you can see, really easy as it hits the water, and not going to do what I want. So because I'm going to try and mix it as if I'm fishing a method feeder, I want to add a little bit more moisture. Now, I don't want to go pouring water straight in now because it's already soaked all that water in. You're going to find it won't take very much to alter it. So I'm just going to pick a little bit up in my hand, drizzle it in there, probably do that twice. Now if you look in there, there's not much water added. And again, I'll just give that a good mix about. Really get all that water mixed into it, spread around nice and evenly. Now, give that a squeeze and you can see much harder now. I've hardly added any extra water, and that just shows if you'd have poured that in there, it's very, very easy to put too much in and overmix it. So that is not far off perfect, to be honest. You can see much harder, probably just breaks up a little bit quicker than I want. So I'll give it one more little drizzle of water, spread that around again, give it a good mix. Again, make sure it's nice and distributed evenly. And this time that's perfect now, much harder. Perfect texture, perfect consistency, and I'm going to be able to mould that round my feeder really, really nicely. It's going to do exactly what I want. But, like I said to you, if I wanted to feed that across to the island or down the side, it's probably a bit too light. It's going to cloud up more than I want. So, what I'm going to do now, I'm not just going to drizzle water on. Tip that up slightly. I'm going to pour a decent amount, probably a little bit more actually. So you can see there's loads of water in there now. Again, give it a good stir about. Get that water spread right through it, get it all really wet. Now I'm not going to try and get it like a slop, but I want a really wet, really heavy ground bait. And you can see, look, that's totally different. I barely have to press it to stick it together. And that now is going to be perfect for potting into the shallow water and drawing loads of fish into my peg. So 2 really different ground bait mixes, but with exactly the same ground bait and just changing the amount of water I'm adding to it. Really, really simple, but if you just make sure you get it mixed correctly, it's going to really improve your catch rate.